Welcome to Super Showdowns, the ultimate destination for epic battles and legendary showdowns. Join us as we put iconic superheroes, villains, and mythological figures against each other in thrilling matches of strength, strategy, and skill. The multiverse trembled under the echo of two ancient hungers, one born of hatred, the other of domination. Across dimensions and forgotten realms, a prophecy whispered by broken gods spoke of a day when Avatar Darkseid and Mangog would stand face to face, and the clash of their wills would decide which truth ruled existence: the hatred of the living or the tyranny of the divine. Far beyond the reach of mortal perception, in the fiery wastelands of Apokolips, an avatar of Darkseid rose from the molten pits. He was a shadow-given form, one of countless manifestations of the true Darkseid, whose essence lay beyond the source. Yet even as an avatar, his presence fractured the air. The Omega sigil burned upon his chest, and his eyes glowed like two dying stars. Around him, the parademons howled as mountains of ash shifted beneath his steps. The great Tyrant stood at the edge of the fire pits, gazing into the boiling horizon where the screams of the condemned echoed eternally. Darkseid's mind stretched across timelines. Through the Omega Effect, he sensed a disturbance that rippled across realities, a growing pulse of rage that fed upon itself. Something was gathering strength in another universe, something ancient enough to rival his dominion. His lips curved into a grim line. "There is no power but Darkseid," he said, and the entire planet trembled in agreement. Yet somewhere beyond the walls of reality, another voice laughed, a deep, venomous sound that carried the fury of billions. That laughter belonged to Mangog. Deep within the ruins of the shattered realm once ruled by Odin, the creature stirred. His form was monstrous, a living mass of scales, teeth, and sinew, forged from the hatred of a billion beings slaughtered by divine arrogance. His very breath was venom, his every movement a quake of fury. The hatred that birthed him had never truly died. It had only waited, festering through ages, feeding on mortal wars, divine betrayals, and cosmic cruelty. Now that hatred burned like a new sun in the void, and Mangog's roar split the silence of forgotten space. The gods of Asgard had long sealed him away, binding his essence within layers of enchanted chains woven from their collective will. But hatred is eternal. It corrodes even the strongest bonds. As Mangog's anger grew, the chains began to crack. One by one they snapped, releasing the wrath of a billion souls. In a storm of fire and thunder, Mangog emerged, towering above mountains, his eyes molten with vengeance. He remembered the taste of godly blood, the sound of broken thrones, and the feel of divine hearts crushed in his hand. He hungered for war, and the universe would once again feed his wrath. Across the multiverse, the energy of his rebirth rippled like a scar across the cosmos. On distant worlds, gods shivered. On Apokolips, the avatar of Darkseid raised his gaze from the fire pits. He saw the disturbance spreading, a wound in the fabric of existence that defied the order of his will. The Omega Effect flared around him, and the shadow of his true self loomed behind him like an endless eclipse. So he whispered, "Something dares to challenge my dominion." He summoned Darkseid, his twisted servant. "Prepare the armadas," Darkseid commanded. "The source trembles. There is a god whose power seeks to rival mine. I will remind the multiverse of the futility of rebellion." Darkseid bowed, trembling, but dared to ask, "My lord, what god could awaken such power?" Darkseid's eyes burned brighter. "Not a god," he said, "a beast." In the void between worlds, the boundaries of universes tore apart as Mangog's fury grew unchecked.
Hey you! Don't just watch. Subscribe please.
He devoured comets, crushed celestial bodies, and absorbed their energy into his being. With every scream of a dying star, his strength multiplied, his presence alone warped space. The hatred of the slain whispered in his ears, chanting a single command: destroy. Soon Mangog felt a pull from a distant plane, a realm where suffering was the natural law. He followed that call, ripping open the barriers of the multiverse. From the fires of Muspelheim to the void of Apokolips, the beast crossed the gulf of infinity. And on that world of eternal torment, the avatar of Darkseid stood waiting, a silhouette against a sky that burned forever. As Mangog's shadow fell across the landscape, the armies of Apokolips scattered in terror. His arrival was heralded by storms of molten rock and rivers of fire bursting from the ground. Mangog roared, his voice shaking the planet's core. Who dares claim dominion over hatred? Darkseid's answer came not as words but as power. The Omega Effect flared, tearing apart the space between them. "I am Darkseid," he declared, his voice cold and absolute. "I am the end of will, the end of choice. You exist because I allow it." Mangog laughed, a sound that shattered mountains. "You are a god of tyranny," he growled, "but I am the hatred of all your kind. You rule through fear. I am fear." The two forces stared into each other's essence, one a god of control, the other a god of chaos. The very world groaned beneath their confrontation. The fire pits erupted into towering infernos, and the sky tore open to reveal the bleeding edge of the multiverse. For the first time in countless eons, the avatar of Darkseid felt something unusual, not fear, but anticipation, for he knew that the clash to come would decide more than victory or defeat. It would decide which truth the multiverse bowed, to the tyranny of order or the fury of hate. And as the two titans took their first steps toward each other, the stars themselves fled. The battle of Avatar Darkseid versus Mangog had begun to stir the very bones of creation. The surface of Apokolips split open as Mangog took his first thunderous step. Rivers of molten fire surged from the cracks, and the screams of parademons filled the air as the very crust of the planet heaved beneath his fury. Each movement of Mangog's colossal body warped gravity, his muscles rippling with the hatred of a billion slain beings. His roar shook the blackened heavens. Across the burning plains stood Avatar Darkseid, motionless and composed amid chaos. His cape billowed in the infernal wind, his eyes glowing with the twin beams of the Omega Effect. He did not blink. He did not flinch. In his calm there was power, the kind of power that did not need to move to be feared. The two titans faced each other, embodiments of different forms of doom. Mangog struck first. His fist, the size of a mountain, crashed through the air with the weight of countless worlds. The impact shattered the battlefield, sending shockwaves that leveled entire fortresses. But when the dust cleared, Darkseid was gone, replaced by a streak of red and black energy. He reappeared behind Mangog in an instant, his hand raised, Omega energy pulsing from his palm. "Bow," Darkseid commanded, and unleashed the Omega beams. They twisted through space like living serpents, burning through dimensions before slamming into Mangog's back. The beast staggered forward, molten blood spilling from the wound, yet even as the energy seared him, Mangog laughed, a deep, terrible sound that drowned the cries of millions. "You cannot erase hatred." Mangog roared. He turned, his arms sweeping through the air. The blow struck Darkseid squarely, sending him flying across the burning plains. The Tyrant's body crashed through several towers of Apokolipsian steel, before coming to rest in a crater of molten stone. Darkseid rose slowly, unbroken, his expression unchanged. "You speak of hatred as if it were power," he said, his voice echoing across the world. "Hatred without control is weakness." Mangog charged again, his body glowing like a star. His fists fell like meteors, each blow strong enough to crush gods. Darkseid met him head-on this time, the ground beneath them liquefying under the pressure. Every strike Darkseid landed detonated with Omega energy, while Mangog's counters shattered the air itself. The sound of their battle roared across the multiverse, two primal forces locked in endless fury. Darkseid opened a boom tube, drawing in Mangog with a gesture. The beast resisted, planting his claws into the ground, but the pull of the dimensional vortex was relentless. Darkseid sent him hurling through realms, through the fourth world, past the bleeding walls of the source, into a void where time had no meaning. Yet still Mangog fought his way back, tearing open reality with his bare hands. When he emerged again, his roar created storms across Apokolips. "You cannot banish what all life feels," he thundered. Darkseid's eyes flared. "Then you will learn to fear what no life can endure." He raised both arms, channeling the full power of the Omega Effect. Space itself warped. The energy burned so brightly that even the stars above turned away. He unleashed the Omega Sanction, the punishment of endless death and rebirth, a fate worse than oblivion. The crimson beams wrapped around Mangog, bending the creature's very essence. Mangog screamed as reality twisted around him. Every life that had ever hated, every god he had ever slain, every cry of vengeance that birthed him. Darkseid made him relive them all at once. The Omega Sanction dragged Mangog through infinite lifetimes of agony, each one collapsing into the next. The beast's mind cracked under the weight of eternity. Still, he fought on, clawing through dimensions, roaring his defiance. Darkseid stepped forward, his aura expanding until it filled the entire sky. "You are hatred," he said, "but I am inevitability." With a single motion, he summoned the fire pits of Apokolips to life. The molten core of the planet erupted upward, forming chains of pure Omega energy that wrapped around Mangog's limbs. The creature struggled, roaring with rage, but the chains tightened, glowing with the energy of the source. "You will burn in my dominion forever," Darkseid said. Mangog's eyes blazed brighter than ever. With a final surge of strength, he broke one chain, striking Darkseid square in the chest. The blow sent ripples through the planet. For the first time, Darkseid staggered. Mangog lunged again, but this time the Tyrant met him with both hands glowing. Darkseid unleashed the full Omega disintegration, focusing every particle of his divine power into Mangog's core. The energy exploded outward, consuming the battlefield in a blinding storm of light and shadow. The explosion tore through layers of reality, shaking the foundations of the multiverse. When the light faded, Apokolips was silent. The sky burned crimson. The ground was nothing but glass and molten ruin. In the center of it all, Darkseid stood alone, his armor cracked, his eyes dim but burning still. Before him, the form of Mangog lay half buried in the obsidian ground, his colossal body still twitching with dying rage. Darkseid looked down at his fallen foe. "Hatred endures," he said, "but hatred obeys." With a final gesture, he opened a rift into the Omega realm, a prison beyond thought, and cast Mangog into it. The creature's screams echoed until the rift closed, sealing him away in eternal torment. Darkseid straightened, his silhouette framed against the blazing horizon of his world. He raised one hand, and the Omega sigil flared above the ruins of Apokolips. "There is no will but mine," he declared. Even hatred bends to Darkseid, and across the multiverse, gods and monsters alike felt the truth of his words. Winner, Avatar Darkseid, the tyranny eternal.